All right, so we have a shortened day today where we're just going to take a very, very quick look at the notes for credit purchasing methods, because yesterday we talked about credit score. And the higher credit score you have, the more likely you are to get better terms when asking to borrow money or to be lent money at all. So today is Wednesday, 12/9, and the objective is to compare various types of credit and purchasing methods. There's lots of ways to buy things nowadays. At one time, years and years and years ago, you just paid cash. You had cash in your wallet and you brought it to the counter, you exchanged it for a good, and that's how you bought things. And then credit cards came out, I would say slowly in the 1970s, and gained more popularity, and now they're almost too popular, which is basically like a credit account, meaning you're taking out a loan, very, very high interest loan. Sometimes people don't realize if you pay your credit card bill in full every month, it's interest free. But as soon as you carry a balance more than a month, that's when they start snowballing interest on top of that. But there's other ways to borrow money as well. There is, if you look on the left side here, installment plans we'll talk about, deferred interest plans, rent-to-own plans, layaway plans. So we'll talk about all those in the math behind all that tomorrow. But for this very short, quick day of notes, let's talk about, again, the definition of credit up at the top here. Credit really is the ability to obtain goods or services before payment. So that's the definition of borrowing, isn't it? Right there, that's what credit means. The ability to obtain goods or services before payment, based on this trust that a payment will be made in the future. If there's a lot of trust, like if you lent your best friend $5, you really trust that person. You're not going to charge them interest, hopefully. So 0% interest, they give you back $5 and we're good. But if you lent it to a stranger, more money to a stranger, you're going to want something in return for that risk. And that's what interest is. They're going to charge some extra money. So, first thing is installment plans. Now, installment plans, there's good, pros and cons. There's good things and negative things about each one of these. Pros of an installment plan: has a manageable, low monthly payment. Number 2, it has a fixed payment, monthly budgeting. Number 3, you can invest your extra money because the payment was so low, you can do something else with that extra money. And number 4, if you have good credit, you get a lower interest rate. Now, what about the cons? Those are bad things about installment plans. Number 1, strict rules with credit score. It's not really a con if you have a good credit score, but it is if you have a bad one. You usually have to put down a down payment with an installment plan. You have to put some money up front. They want you to have some skin in the game, so you can't just walk away on it. You gave them some money, so you're going to come back and give them more. And number 3, finance charges. If you break the terms or take too long to pay. All right, deferred interest. And again, we're going to talk about these in detail tomorrow. This is the beginning of the notes. All the math and the scenarios that go with it, we'll talk about tomorrow. So deferred interest. For example, no interest for maybe 6 months, all the way up to maybe 2 years, say. And you don't have any interest adding up for that amount of time. That's what deferred interest means. Number 2, a lot of times you don't need a down payment. So the interest is not calculated early. You don't have to put money out of your pocket up front. Number 3, affordable monthly payments, sometimes too affordable. Now, what the heck does that mean? How could something be too affordable? Well, it's going to create a balloon payment later on. But again, you'll see that in the scenarios. And number 4, if you're very disciplined financially, you can buy expensive things and people will let you do that with a deferred interest rate. The negative things, read the agreement. There's major finance charges if not met. And that's what too affordable kind of led on to before. in the fine print, basically. If you don't pay it off in full by this date, then all these fees get added on. Number 2, you often need to apply for the store credit card, and that might have a high interest rate. Number 3, again, this is what that balloon payment can result in. Monthly payments might be too low, meaning at the end, the last one might be really high to make up for that. So it's sort of like a bait and switch. Low payment, low payment, low payment, low payment, and then all of a sudden, high payment. And if you don't make that high payment that you weren't ready for, they get you all these fees tacked on. And like I talked about, it must be paid off in a designated time, or they're going to add up all that interest and hit you with it later. So it's one of these, it's a risk. If you can follow the rules, which are pretty strict, you got a really good deal. But if you slip up, avoid all those rules come crashing down on you in a hurry. All right, rent to own. You can get things really quickly, like right now. I want this. You got it. Number 2, very low payments. Number 3, usually not a credit check. They just say, we don't care who you are. Here you go, take the merchandise and start paying us. And number 4, if you keep paying them to the point where you've paid enough to what the item was worth, you can keep it. It's yours. So that's what rent to own means. However, number 1, on this con side, it's one of the most expensive methods of ownership because you will probably need a big down payment. And then when you add up everything else, you may have overpaid for it. So at the end, you can pay the balance or just return the item. And they'll usually come take it from you if you don't return it. Let's say you rent to own a living room set for $5,000. And after 6 months to a year, you stopped paying. Or, they're going to either look for the item and they're going to come get it. You can return it, or you got to pay for everything. Layaway, the last one. Interest-free purchasing. No interest at all with layaway. You don't need a credit card. Availability of high demand items. And it's really easy to apply for and be accepted for this. But layaways have fees and down payments. You don't even get the item until you pay it in full. So basically, like, you put it aside. Like, it's almost, think of the PS5. Everybody wants one right now. You could have put it on layaway months ago and paid for it a little bit over time, but you don't get to take it home until you finish paying for it, if you use layaway. Strict payment terms, which we talked about. If you no longer want the item after 6 months of paying for it, they're just going to keep your money. So you need to be invested in that item, and you can't do it for everything. All right, so that's it for today. We will continue and do scenarios for each one of these installment plans, deferred interest, rent to own, etc. We'll do the math behind those scenarios tomorrow.